Hello and welcome to Think of It This Way, Studio 7's podcast that explores training and performance across any and all fields and topics. This week, we have a sleep expert, but that's for short. It doesn't really do justice to our accolades, so let me elaborate. We have Dr. Sheryl Guloy, who is a learning scientist, researcher, educator, and consultant in improving learning and performance through innovative research, development, and technology. She works with other researchers, organizations, and networks on knowledge translation efforts. On top of that, she is the co-founder of Somnolence Plus, which is an initiative that brings together professionals and experts from diverse fields to educate people and organizations about the benefits of improved sleep. So, Sheryl, thank you very much for joining me.
You're very welcome, George.
All right.
Glad to be here.
Thank you. Great. So, speaking of improved sleep, just to show that I'm doing my homework, I'm going to wear my blue light reducing sunglasses here because it's evening time and I want to get a good night's sleep myself. So,
Very good. Very good.
hey, thank you. I have even amber ones as well, like the red ones where you can barely see a thing, but I'm getting used to those. Like that makes a great transition vision to as you head to bed. But anyway, let's go back to you. So what I like to do at every beginning of a podcast, because I find it very fun and personable and interesting, is to have everyone describe their origin story. That is, how did they end up in the field that we're discussing? So this is interesting for me too, because I know we shared the field in ed tech. Normally, my guests are like totally somewhere else, but not this time. And please take it away to as to how you became the sleep expert.
Hmm. This is a this is a part where I'm gonna have to, it's interesting when people ask you your origin story. Sometimes you have to go back years and years and years, but that would really be a long and circuitous affair. So I'm gonna just pretty much start where sleep comes into play,
Of course.
right? So I was I've always been a night owl, you see,
That's a good story.
and an extreme one at that, right? So it's interesting. While you're wearing glasses, I'm not really using blue light, but I have a mix of both. And how come? Because my circadian rhythm is such that it's at a different time from everyone else's.
Right.
So genetically, and I'll go into that a bit later. And so what that means is I go to bed when everyone else is waking up. So for me, having something that is closer to daylight is actually better for me.
Oh, wow.
And,
Okay.
and then later on,
Yeah.
I'll darken everything, right? So
Oh,
because essentially I'm living, you know what? Let's put it this way. When you wake up, I go to bed. And so this is a life of a night owl.
yeah.
And for many, many years, even before I started, since childhood, but when I went back and I did my master's at, basically in ed tech, we both went to the same place and it was great. Honestly, Concordia was amazing for that. It's known for its educational technology program. And I went and I learned so much. I learned so much about human performance technology or improvement, instructional design, learning in general, and I fell in love with research, right? And so after that, I decided to continue with my doctoral studies. And I went to Simon Fraser in BC, in Vancouver, and I began doing research in that area in educational technology and learning design. And while I was there, I was also there was a semester where I was teaching, right? And and so this is a thing. When I was working 9 to 5 in companies, the hardest thing for me was getting to work. It was and not being sleep deprived
Right.
because of my night owl schedule, right? And this is the thing. No one knew about night owls at that point. Yeah, colloquially we said night owl is like this and a night owl is like that, but people didn't really know
They didn't
what
take
it
it
was. They
seriously,
figured
right?
it was a preference.
Okay.
Pardon me?
They didn't really take the term seriously. Like, no, I literally need to go, to bed when you wake up for me to function at my best. They're just like, oh, someone who stays up late, I don't know, partying or cramming for an exam, but not like a lifestyle 24/7, 365, right?
Yeah, exactly. And the funniest thing here is that until a couple of years ago, I didn't even know about it that well either.
Yeah.
Right. And so, well, more than a couple of years now, but still, what I'm saying is it's relatively new. And many people to this day don't understand that. And I'll get into that a bit later, I guess, if it comes up in the conversation. But so when I was working 9 to 5, it was really hard for me to be really alert, and I thought that was normal. I thought that was normal. I thought that uh, that feeling that much fatigue was just regular life.
Yeah.
Amazingly, though, I was still able to do a lot. So I would go to work, and often after work, I would volunteer, do a lot of things with organizations. I was just very active, right? So I maintained a certain level of, I more so than other people, I guess, just being out there doing things. And that brought me to ed tech. All those activities brought me to ed tech, and then research. And then from research, I went to SFU, like I said. And at SFU, I was teaching. And all was well, actually, because I had figured out back when I was doing my master's, finishing it up, and I quit my job just so I could finish my thesis. And I would have had to leave anyways to do my PhD, right?
Right. Right.
But when I quit my job and was only working on my thesis, I could wake up at whatever time I wanted. And for the first time in my life, I knew it was like not to feel exhausted. I could think clearly, I could think straight, as long as I didn't have to worry about waking up early the next day, right? And then when I started off at SFU, many of the classes, as you know, for advanced degrees are in the evening, right?
Oh
Because
yeah.
many
Oh, I
people.
remember those brutal evening classes. I couldn't function, but anyway, the
Sorry.
body was there and that's it. Brain
Yeah.
was, yeah.
Yeah. See, that's the thing. Like, you're more of a morning person. I'm an evening person. So imagine, for me, those were a godsend. I
Yeah.
didn't have to wake up early for it, and I could be alert, and I could learn. I was just sharper, and that was good. And that was great. I was working, but often meetings, it'd be unless I became known for not wanting to meet before 10:30. And afternoons were better.
Yeah.
And it was funny, I wasn't the only one. There were quite a few of us who were also there. I knew a couple of other night owls, and they kind of, oh yeah, it's this person and this person. If we should set a meeting with them in the afternoon. Anyway. So that was fine. And then I was teaching, and I looked at this teaching schedule, and all of a sudden I had a class at a session that I had to teach at I think around 8:45 in the morning.
Oh man.
I died.
Yeah.
It was, I think, I was like, how the heck am I going to do this? How am I going to even wake up, right? And then it all came to a head because I was so worried about not being able to wake up that essentially what ended up happening is, yeah, I, okay, I have to explain the way I set up my room.
Okay.
So by my bed, there's an alarm clock. Across the room, there's an alarm clock. So that I can't, if I hit snooze on one, I can't hit snooze on the other. I'll be forced to wake up and get out of bed to hit snooze and then, wake up, right? And I figured this would work. But I was, like I said, I was so anxious about it that I began to have insomnia, or, I thought it was insomnia. Actually, it did. It actually became insomnia, and I couldn't fall asleep because I was thinking, gosh, it's already 3:30, it's already 4, what am I going to do? And often this is what happens to people who have insomnia. They look at the clock and they think of what's going to happen next. Will they be able to do what they do the next day? Will they be able to wake up, etc.?
Yep.
Right? And so when I finally fell asleep, next thing I knew, I had to wake up but I guess I was too deep in my sleep that I didn't even hear the alarm clocks. And I woke up on my own with a start. I'm like, when you wake up, I don't know if this has ever happened to you, but for me, it happens occasionally where I'll wake up and I'll be like, oh my God, what time is it? What's going on? And I looked at my my watch. I'm like, crap. It's like the session is starting like now. Like
Oh,
now.
yeesh. This is before Zoom
What?
classes. This is like, oh, you have to like, I don't know, take a bus across town or whatever to get there, right?
Yeah, yeah. Well, no, not no. I was actually near campus. I was on
Okay.
campus at this particular
Oh,
point in
at
time.
least. All right.
But I was like, how am I going to get there regardless? It's
Yeah.
not like it's a small campus here. This is it's still sizable, and I jump up. I'm like, okay, maybe I can make it. Maybe there'll be some people who will be there still, right? And so I got dressed,
Oh my.
ran to the session, got to the room, and of course no one was there. And I'm thinking, God, now you have to understand how I must have felt, right? I
Yeah.
mean, I'm the person who's supposed to be setting the example. I'm the professional. I'm the academic. Well, basically, I'm the one who's supposed to be there, right?
Hmm.
Why couldn't I make it there? And all of these thoughts go into your brain. It's like, why can't you get your, you know, expletive together? Why can't you just wake up in the morning and be there? What is wrong with you?
Yeah.
Why can't you be more responsible at your age? And this is me talking to myself, right?
Uh-huh.
um and I remember feeling horrible, pretty dejected, and I walked down to the research lab because I was on a research team. And in this research lab was Dr. Luc Baudouin. Interesting. There was another Quebecer in the
Mm.
in the research team, right? So
Yeah.
that was kind of cool, and from Gatineau though, right? But
Okay.
he'd been in BC for a long time, and so he's a cognitive scientist, and I ended up speaking with him, and he's like, "What's wrong? What's the matter?" And I said, "Oh, I have insomnia and I couldn't go to bed, and I couldn't." I told him exactly what happened, and he said, "You know what? I get where you're coming from. I know how you feel, because at one point he had issues with insomnia,
Mm.
interestingly enough, and we talked about it, and he said, you know what, I had issues. It got me to the point where I investigated sleep more for myself.
Yeah.
I have a theory about it and how to help with sleep onset, which is falling asleep. And I also have a mobile app that I've developed, or it's in prototype. I have a prototype of it. Would you like to try it? I said, sure. Let me try your method. So I tried the method, and it actually helped me to fall asleep. So the insomnia part was helped, which was great. I still had issues in terms of waking up early. At that point, I was less aware of circadian rhythms, right? So
Right.
this was, while I had already learned quite a bit about sleep hygiene, circadian rhythm research was still something new to me. And uh, this, everything I'm sharing with you is probably over 10 years ago now, right?
Mhm.
12, 11, something like that. So at that point in time, I didn't know as much about it. But regardless, we began working together on sleep. So he had this mobile app. I tried it. We began working on different projects together. At one point, we had a presentation that we were working on together. The news happened to come to the university to to they the local news station. I think it was either Global or City or one of those. And I didn't go. I was able to attend the actual presentation. I had a meeting,
Mhm.
but he was there and he was interviewed, which was great. And then from there, it sort of spearheaded. I don't know if that was a first instance or whether there was something beforehand, but it was around that time where people started to take note of his sleep app, which was one of the first out there, right? And that also had that was science based, right? And so from then on, you would have, CBC, The Guardian, Forbes, New York Times. I can go on, speaking with him. And I remember so flash forward a couple of years to when I finished my PhD, and we met up and we're like, okay, so in what ways can we collaborate, right? Because at that point he had different projects that he was working on, and I was looking to see what kind of collaborations we could work on, or continue working on, especially after I left. And he had one which would be interesting actually for the people on your show to know about. It's called Hook, and he does work in cognitive productivity, right? It's for knowledge workers, and it's an interesting concept that builds upon the research that he had conducted with our team, as well as other things that he had come up with on his own. But it's a really interesting concept. And so that was there was that, and that was on knowledge workers, which would be closer in line to, let's say, knowledge translation. Well, not knowledge translation, but more of the learning aspect, learning and performance issues that I had studied about, right, in our field. Or I could continue working on sleep. And I said, you know what? If actually I was the one, I said, you know what? I know you like, I said, if there's a project that you're doing, the one that I want to work on with you is sleep, because I think no one talks about it.
Mhm.
And it's so important for learning.
Yeah.
And it's so important not only for learning, but for performance, for health. And it affects your workers. It affects your employees, right? It affects knowledge workers and the things that they're supposed to do. So,
Right.
you can focus on your cognitive productivity, which is important. Yet, if you are sleep deprived, how well are you going to be learning? And what are your solutions going to be like? And will they be as, let's say, optimal as they could be? Will you, right? And so from then on, we began talking, and then about how we were going to get this information out there. And I was already working at that point in the knowledge translation area, right? And so knowledge translation is really taking research and making it more widely known to various stakeholders who should use it, so it doesn't just stay in the
Theoretical.
archives.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I was working with a network called the Canadian Sleep and Circadian Network, at one point too, and they're a knowledge translation network. I started doing research on sleep with Luke on mobile apps and how they help people, with falling asleep who have insomnia. And I began really niching myself into the health and wellness field, and particularly sleep. And so then that got us into working with organizations, principally universities. That's our environment. We're, the academic environment. However, from there, about last year, we kept having people ask us questions about sleep. Like, it would happen to me when I would go to a cafe. I'd be speaking with somebody about sleep. Like, it happened to me just here, was it last summer? I think it was this last summer. No, not this summer, the summer before, right?
Okay.
So I was in a cafe speaking with a psychologist who was, I think he was at McGill at that particular point in time, and I said, let's talk about. I'd love to meet up with you, and we began talking about sleep, and then there was someone beside me, beside our table, who was listening to our conversation, right? And when the psychologist left, that person who was sitting to my right turned to me and said, "So, do you work with sleep or on sleep?" And I told him, "Yes, I do." He goes, "Oh, wow. Okay, this is interesting because I've had issues with sleep." And then we had an hour conversation.
Mhm.
Luke on his side had people asking if he could coach them, on sleep. And this this incident kept repeating itself to the point where we're like, you know what? When we think of knowledge translation, typically you'll think of other organizations or stakeholders, maybe, corporate nonprofits, professionals. However, patients are a big group, as well as in terms of sleep, everybody, the general public, right?
Yeah.
Everyone sleep.
Yeah.
So from there we said, okay, well, maybe we should go directly to the public and see if we can coach people on this. I think this is something that is important. And so we're building that out right now. Yeah. Is that was kind of a long-winded origin story.
That's
But
well,
yeah.
there's a lot in there. I understand, so
Yeah.
it's all good. What from a storytelling point of view, what peaked in my brain or touched the whatever neuron it is that's heightened for emotions, like that moment where you ran to class only to have no one there, and it was like a lesson. I was already formulating something in my mind as an idea. It's like, oh look, maybe she felt that she was in lack of integrity with the class, but the fact of the matter was that in order to be in integrity with any class, you have to be in integrity with your own system and how you worked. And you simply did not. This is not. It wasn't your optimal functionality. And having struggled with energy and whatever myself, I can completely relate. I mean, if not for the different times we sleep, at least the need to honor your body. So, for example, I just had DNA tests come in that tells me everything I could possibly ever ask for and more. So you could ask my boss about honoring my health, about having my little rebounder in my office and all the crazy and the naps I take there and so forth to all the name of productivity. So basically the message of being in integrity with the way you were put together, and having the braveness to go out of leave the cookie cutter, escape conformity, and say, this is who I am, this is how I work best, this is how I came to serve the world, you know and this is the path I have to take, and please, if you want to work with me, this is the way I roll. So that part I can relate to, despite the different times we sleep at. Yeah.
Very true. And I know it's about you, actually. I know that you're very into health and wellness. I also know that you've researched on sleep and that this is something that you consider important.
Oh, absolutely.
If only more people were like you.
Thank you. Well, that segues perfectly into my next question. You talked about people coming up to you and Luke and everything. At this point, 20, as we finish off 2020, what level of awareness would you say people have now, as a general public sense? How seriously does the general public take their sleep now, or consider, given what habits you still hear about, do you think like, they're not there yet, and we have a long way to go until the whole world learns about how important sleep is.
We still have a long way to go.
Yeah.
I would say, all right. This reminds me, I have a podcast, My
Yeah.
Sleep Journey, and yeah, it's a little plug, but it was not an intended. I didn't intend to plug it. It just sort of happened.
Okay. You can
But
plug what I was going to ask you anything you want to plug at the end, so don't worry about it. Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So essentially what happened was yesterday, I was talking about this exact issue. I I was, talking into my phone because I seriously just use my phone for my podcast. I'm trying to keep it as simple as possible for
I get
me to
it.
do. And, talk into your phone, put it up. And what I talked about was this, that it always surprises me that people don't know about sleep, how much they
Mhm.
don't know. And it shouldn't. And I said it shouldn't really surprise me because the way I see it, sleep is at a stage where we're at in terms of nutrition or nutritional awareness, maybe in the 80s, where, right? Or 70s, 80s, where people were starting to look into it. I would say 10 years ago when we were talking, when the mobile app was launched, I would say we were not on anyone's radar at all. Very few people thought about sleep. You would see, the occasional uh, you would see the occasional newspaper article or something on your news feed about it. And you started to see more of it at that time. But before that, I wouldn't say a lot of people knew about it. I knew about sleep hygiene. There were things that you would hear, for instance, in school, in high school, your teachers would tell you, make sure you get good sleep,
Mhm.
make sure you sleep well so that you do well in your exam, etc., things like that.
Yep.
But it wasn't in anyone's, I wouldn't say the general public didn't know about it much, and they still don't.
Yeah,
And so
sounds good.
that's our goal.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
I'll sleep when I'm dead, right? That's still popular.
So popular. Uh, I think it's only beginning to change now. And with, you're starting to get a lot of meditation apps taking advantage of, you know, this sleep, the sleep wellness market, right? You're seeing a lot more, for instance, the glasses you have that are, these kinds of products are popping up everywhere now. It's a growth industry. And as of last year, there was actually, well, they say this almost every year, but last year, I think they were right that it is now on the verge of hitting its stride, and it's just growth, right? Because people realize you eat well, you exercise, but if you're not sleeping well, there's something off there, right? I mean, it is one of the pillars of health, and some people would say it's the foundation for the other two. Some people would argue that.
I heard that. I
So,
heard someone assert that sleep is they assert sleep is more important than food and water because you can go weeks without food, a couple of days without water. After day two of no sleep, you're dead. You're a zombie. Like, so that's I
yeah,
believe them. Yeah.
yeah, there are people who, I mean, all right. So there was one study where they looked at, obviously for ethical reasons, it's not something that they can really run
Right.
these, but it was something that they looked at, and essentially what the outcome showed is that people, if you deprive someone of food, and if you deprive someone of sleep, they're both going to die
Mhm.
one way or another. If you deprive a person of sleep, the person with sleep is going to die. Without sleep will die.
Right.
They might be eating, but if they have no sleep, forget it. They're done.
Yeah.
Same thing, if a person is hungry, then you need energy. Here's the thing though, depending on, our body has stores of, fat, and it has stores of that it can use. You can survive for quite a while. For some people, I mean, you can't do that with sleep, right? So there is something to that. In the end, they ended up being more or less the same, with some people saying sleep edges out food. Yeah, there's that interpretation too, right? So, but yeah, it's extremely important, and it's people don't realize it. So, yeah, that's our goal, to
Good.
help people know more.
Awesome. I mean, I can attest, and I was going to ask about this next. Not only just okay, yay, survival and wellness, but above that, if we climb the hierarchy of needs to be like not just alive but productive and fully present and align with our goals and everything. It's furthermore important for, and you made mention of this on the website about how there's a correlation or how it's important for productivity, decision making, and creativity. And I could attest sometimes if I did not get a good night's sleep and it just so happens the next day we're on a new project and it's like, how are we gonna make this amazing? How are we gonna put a wow factor? And I'm like, wow factor, dude, I'm toast, So I really had to take it into my own hands and go as extreme as I could with DNA testing and all the gadgets because it's like, no, I have to be like, not just hey awake and like doing a repetitive job. It's not that repetitive. I gotta be all creative and practically a second incarnation of Disney sometimes if I want to make great products. So could you speak more about that? Where there was more research about, okay, if you really want to go above and beyond, do not ignore sleep for the love of God. There's like that strong correlation, study after study.
You don't even have to go that far.
Yeah.
In 24 hours without any rest, you're pretty much performing as though you're a drunk person. That's it.
Done a module about that. Yeah, actually, yeah.
Right? So, and even more insidious is this issue where you're sleeping for 6 hours a night. Most people, they sleep. I ask when I speak with people, often it's like, yeah, I sleep 5 to 6 hours, 6 hours, maybe 6.5 hours. I'm like, interesting. And so if you do that consistently over a 2-week period, when they actually conducted a study and they measured performance, the people who slept consistently for 2 weeks with only 6 hours of sleep overnight performed at the same level as someone who was legally drunk.
Yeah.
So there you go. In terms of performance, there are also safety issues to consider too.
Yep.
We know, for instance, that if you are sleep deprived and you're driving, it's extremely dangerous. If you're operating machinery, it's extremely dangerous.
Right.
Some of our greatest disasters, environmental disasters, are related to, basically fatigue-related accidents, right? Sleep-related accidents.
Yep.
Chernobyl.
Oh my, yeah.
Okay, what's another one? In terms of driving, did you know, for instance, that many people, so not many people, so essentially here are the stats. Those people who get into an accident when they are sleep deprived, their accidents tend to be graver than those people who are drunk. There's a higher mortality rate with people who fall asleep at the wheel, essentially.
Yeah.
And this can, sorry, I'm sorry, go on.
No, I just said, wow. Yeah, no, I didn't mean to cut you off. Go ahead.
Oh, no problem. I can the issue with me is I can talk on end, so, interrupt me when you want.
Okay.
But yeah, so it's funny because yes, so essentially those are the things that happen, I mean, so it doesn't take long for micro sleep to happen. So micro sleep is sort of your brain shuts down for a bit, fraction of a second, you fall asleep for a fraction of a second, sometimes longer, and you might not even realize it. Oh my goodness, this used to happen to me in school all the time.
Oh man, I think I've had micro dreams, like I'm out for 5 minutes and yet I still remember something. It's really weird.
Yeah, you know what I learned to do, which okay, but this is a big segue. I learned how to take notes. Really, I had no idea. I mean, I was processing it a little bit, but I was taking notes of absolutely everything that was said. I could do that, but I know that I was half asleep doing it. And I would have to review everything in the evening and try to make sense of what I had written. The great thing was I got good at it. I was able to do it.
Probably made you a very good researcher. Yeah, probably part of your success.
I don't know. But yeah, so in terms of creativity, because you were talking about that too. Okay, so I've had people say, yeah, but I'm not tired and I've been able to survive. And yeah, I have to say, I've pulled my share of all-nighters and I've done that. It burns you out, right? It does burn you out. You can perform, but you're not performing optimally. So let's put it this way. Some people can't perform at all. Some people have learned how to manage,
Yeah.
right? But you're surviving. You're not really giving your all. And, you know, when you're talking about there are two things to think about in your organization. You have absenteeism, right? And you have presenteeism. I could be very present at my desk. I could be working, but how efficiently and effectively am I working? Right?
Oh yeah. Yeah.
If I'm sorry, go.
No, I was just gonna say,
Yeah.
insidious is indeed the word. It's like the boiling frog syndrome. Like, oh yeah, no, I'm fine. This is like not. You don't realize. Oh wait, it's 20 degrees and the water's 20 degrees. Now it's 25. Now it's 35. Now it's 45. And before you realize it, you could be a goner. So, uh,
Uh,
yeah.
I think that's a really good analogy, actually. I think that is I think that's perfect in terms
Feel
of,
free to use it.
yeah, I like it. I think I might. It's true though. That's the way it is. And when there is okay, so when you don't sleep, and we're talking about sleep deprivation here. So sleep deprivation could be caused by many different things like sleep apnea, insomnia, or just pretty much you just like staying awake, or you just don't like to sleep because there are all these things you do. So you tell yourself,
Yeah.
I'm much more productive. I need to get this done, so therefore I won't sleep. And I know that was me. That was me. But it affected my health. It did. It affected my health, and I was absent. I also, in terms of presenteeism, I can say that happened. I can also say that while I was able to sometimes actually, I'll look at my work and I'll be like, "Oh yeah, that was pretty cool." But I wonder to what degree I would have been able to do better
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
if, you know?
Hmm.
And then there were other times where I know, when you're talking about that frog. So maybe I was able to do that the first night, but as this began to extend itself and prolong, the situation was prolonged for way too long. Next thing you know, you're boiled.
That's right.
You're the boiled frog, right? And you're burnt out, and you're looking at the screen or at your books, and you're reading the same paragraph over and over and over. What should take you 5 minutes is taking you 2 hours, 5 hours,
Yeah.
right?
Uh-huh.
I I mean, there was one point in time where I was so tired that I think I might have hallucinated something. I might have hallucinated, because because yeah, I have a suspicion that that might have happened, but I'm not really sure. I mean, if you keep doing that to yourself, you will get to the point where you burn out for
How
sure,
long
and
did
there
it,
is that correlation.
how long did it take you, now that you mentioned it, for you to notice decline in your health?
I think I had always noticed it. Uh, remember I told you when I was working 9 to 5, it was always a struggle. I had just assumed that I just figured that was how everybody felt,
Yeah.
right? So if you don't know any better, you just figure, like, if you don't know any better, it just is. That's just
Yeah.
life.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, but I can tell you when I say presenteeism and absenteeism, some days I was so exhausted that I couldn't go into work, right? I couldn't go into work because I had no energy. I like I was pretty much sick. And there was a point in time during my master's, prior to my master's, actually. I was burning out prior to my master's because I was already doing quite a bit,
Hmm.
volunteering in the evenings and weekends,
Oh my.
and also, yeah, and then also working full time, and then So I was burning out also because there were many different situations. Factors. It wasn't just because of sleep,
Okay.
but certainly sleep doesn't help. It influences your emotions.
Yep.
How well you regulate your emotions, the way you think in terms of decisions, uh, you know, how you perceive people, how you perceive situations. It also so people who are sleep deprived will typically perceive situations or people actually as more threatening,
Hmm. Yeah, like paranoia.
right?
Yeah.
Yes, and in terms of creativity, you were talking about that.
Hmm.
Creativity decreases when you're sleep deprived, right? So what happens, there were studies looking at divergent thinking, which is, how you could look at the same situation in different ways, how expanding your thinking, right? So and then convergent thinking, and definitely in terms of creativity, people were who were deprived were lacking. Um, you know, well, not lacking, but they were doing less well.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I noticed all of this, and I knew I needed sleep, but how could I not? Like, I had to work, you know?
Hmm.
So that kind of leads to feeling like you're burning out, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Because, I mean, what can you do? You can't exactly stop working. Well, you can, but you have to break your mindset that,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
right?
You're in need of a paradigm shift, and you have to blaze your own trail. You don't have a choice. Your body's demanding it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Um, those are some of the things that I dealt with, and yeah, so it was something I just grew up with, and I assumed it was normal, even though I knew that it was affecting my health. Yeah.
All right. I'm glad you found. I'm glad you found your trail. So,
Thank you.
so now let's take advantage of all this wonderful knowledge and education you've amassed over the years. So we'll talk about Somnolence Plus a little more. So I have here in your services, I see trainings and programs, education on sleep onset and sleep efficiency, workshops, webinars, sleep coaching, consultations. Then we go to Somnolence Plus solutions, determining your organization's sleep efficiency needs, piloting and evaluating solutions, developing and implementing sleep wellness programs and initiatives, and the innovation of the app, the My Sleep let me get this right, My Sleep Button app, and other innovations to help you get the rest that you need. So, like as an idea, I'm like, oh wow, this is the whole gamut from training to performance, like what we're trying to do at Studio 7. You got the ID, you got the HPT, consulting, assessing people's needs, and so forth. And you spoke of knowledge translation. So basically, that reminded me of the cliche pop culture phrase of knowledge is power. But then someone added knowledge is power, but only if you apply it or if you actually use it. So given all these offerings, I'm curious to pick your brain as to how you transfer this knowledge and what different ways. Is it, there could be just, for instance, for me, it's e-learning most of the time. The webinar could just be a speech. And the workshops, do you bring, pillows, or do you demonstrate the Aura Ring? All those metric devices to measure sleep. Like, what is the kaleidoscope of the way you go about this, using everything that you've learned in school and beyond?
Right. Okay. So that's okay. So in terms of school, what I've learned over the years in terms of, you know, my educational background and research, I use a lot of it,
Hmm.
right? And obviously, as you see, you've got your needs assessment, you've got your
Yep.
evaluation, so essentially it's applying the tools of human performance improvement
Okay.
technology
Very good.
and instructional design this this niche, if you will, right? That has been overlooked. And that this overlooked aspect of it is the knowledge translation aspect. So, what is knowledge translation except that it, but for basically taking research, and making sure that people not even use it. People won't use it if they don't even know about it.
Yeah. You don't know
Right? But
if you don't know.
pardon me?
There's these expressions I got from Landmark when there's you know what you know what you don't know, but then you don't know what you don't know. Like, unconscious incompetence. So it's not
Yes.
even in your like radar. It's not even on your radar. So you just like it wasn't on your radar how, oh, I'm not supposed to feel this crappy when I'm doing a 9 to 5. I guess this is just the way it is. No, it wasn't. It was a paradigm you had to shift.
Exactly. Right. So enlightening people
Yeah.
about, the importance of taking care of their sleep and how it relates to their health, wellness, and performance. I think that was the goal and that's the mission. And so when typically what we do is we will start talking to an organization, whether it be a university or a clinic. It could even be a corporation. We've worked with the three different types. We've worked with a nonprofit as well. And what we'll do is we'll find out about their situation. So basically you have that core needs assessment, right? That needs assessment that really tries to understand what their issues are like in terms of performance in relation to sleep. Whether they have policies about it, whether they feel that, how basically conducting a needs assessment to also figure out the readiness, right, to work with us in developing certain kinds of interventions or to determine what those interventions would be. So what I found is it really depends. It depends on the organization. So when we're talking about like a project like that, right? It could be, for instance, we worked with a university and we found out that there were three different departments, essentially the student learning commons, student engagement and retention, as well as health and counseling, who didn't know as much about sleep. And the student learning commons actually spearheaded that initiative, and they worked closely with retention student engagement and retention, and they also worked closely with health and counseling. So what we did is we met with them, we figured out what their needs were, and based on that, working collaboratively with them, we developed a workshop to train their professionals. And then we also developed some other things for them as well. And essentially that's an example of how we'd work. We'd start with that needs assessment, which is critical. And for instructional designers out there, that needs analysis at the beginning, which is often ignored, which I understand too, because of the restraints. But at least, for me, it was always, I may not be able to do a full scale needs assessment, but I need to know at least something. And there are many different ways that you can actually go about doing that without having to do something that is, a full scale one. Right. So, yeah. And okay, so that's one of our services. But like I said, it depends on the organization. There was another one who just contacted me, and not just now, but I mean, who contacted me and pretty much just asked if I could do a lunch and learn.
Oh, okay.
So lunch and learns are something that we do as well. We do everything virtually. So that was something that was important for me, or blended. And it just simply because our team is in three different cities.
Ah,
So
okay.
yeah.
Yeah.
So Luke is in Vancouver, I'm in Montreal, and Arturo is in Toronto.
Hmm.
In Toronto. So essentially, the three of us work together, and we I don't think we've met each other. Okay, I've never met Arturo in person.
Oh, wow.
Luke and I obviously
Sign of the
obviously have
time.
worked together.
Yeah.
Pardon me?
No, it's a sign of the
Yeah.
times. People like as Studio 7 has evolved, some people have come and gone like everywhere else. And a colleague of mine is saying that person on the left, I never met them live. Like,
Yeah,
yeah, well, special times, special circumstances, but it works.
exactly.
It works. So we got to roll with the punches.
Right. Well, that's the thing. I've been working virtually forever.
Huh.
Uh,
Well, that's not bad
forever.
for you.
It's sorry, I couldn't hear what you
It's
said
old
again.
hat for you. This is like, you've been practicing for this situation for like a couple of years, and everyone else is shocked about it. You're like, yeah, yeah, been there, done that.
Yeah. Yeah. Yes, exactly. I think that's because, again, partly I would say that our master's program helped us with that a lot because we did a lot of things virtually. It was blended,
Yeah.
and so that already helped. Um, in terms of, and then when I was at SFU, Simon Fraser, at the research lab, for instance, everything often, see that particular research team specifically, I mean, I was on quite a few of them at the same time, which is kind of nuts. It's kind of crazy. I remember I was speaking with a person, a researcher who basically her specialty is doctoral students, and she interviewed me for her study, and when she found out everything that I was doing, she's like, oh, she's like, wow, it's a lot.
Yeah.
That's like what some of our postdocs are doing. I'm like, what can I say? It's just, I think it's something that I do, it's just something I do. But in any case, so I was in a couple of research projects, and one of them specifically in the same lab that Luke was in, it was geared towards developing a learning platform, which is and study, right? So you had your researchers, your research team, and you also had, of course, your developers. And often the researchers are also where, how our program, like, how it is in ed tech, you can have people from such a wide variety of programs, from someone who's in fine arts, journalism, business,
Engineering.
computer science. It's multidisciplinary. And so you get that mix. And so I was very used to working in that kind of environment, because a lot of IT people research and, in R&D, especially if you're working with developers, they're not on site. So, and people tend to work at their own time when they work best. And it's a weird thing. All of us, the majority of us, were night owls. Total opposite from the way it was before. But it just so happened practically everyone was a night owl, many of us. And so, we were using Skype. Our Skype was always open. It was sort of, we learned how to collaborate very well using Skype, email, Google Docs, or whatever platforms we needed to use. And so we just learned it was just something, we learned how to, those virtual team skills people are always talking about. Sometimes it doesn't work so well. I've been on teams where not so good. But then I've been on others like this one where people knew what to do and how to use those tools to perform and work together. Yeah. So that was something. Okay, I think I segued into some other discussion, but sorry.
So
okay. So, yeah.
okay.
Oh, wait. I just remembered. I touched upon I had touched upon those services, but then the other service we're also doing now, again, is virtual. So it's pretty much virtual coaching.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So virtual online programs for sleep wellness, and this is something that we're actually running a program right now that is in beta. So piloting it. We have some participants going through that. And then we also do coaching, right? Where I meet with people, principally through Zoom or whatever,
Teams,
Either Zoom or now Facebook has
Messenger, or video. Yeah.
yeah. So I'll use that as well, and
Is it
we
more
have
one
sessions.
or one-on-one or group or both?
Pardon me?
Your video coaching, is it one-on-one coaching or group coaching or both?
One-on-one coaching,
Okay.
but there is an online component that is asynchronous.
Okay. Okay. Got it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Right.
I was wondering, like, you get like the head of a community, the head of an organization on board. Yes, I believe in it too. Maybe those people went through their own struggles, so they can relate, and they've got that much more buy-in. But when you propose an intervention, how receptive have people been in that community, organization, etc., to adopt the changes that you're recommending?
All right. So it really depends.
Yeah.
It really depends. And it depends with whom you speak. So, for instance, in one company that I know well, there was one person in it initially who was trying to understand why it was important and didn't feel it was. But I also have deep contacts in this company, right? So I spoke with someone who was at that point working with their health and wellness a center or department, and essentially like their wellness center. And she loved the idea. She thought it was great, right? So it really depends with whom you speak. So in another situation, I had done a lunch and learn with another company, and the people who approached me, they were again from their health and wellness center, right? And they asked about sleep, or actually, she was referred to me by somebody else. And when we met, one of the things that she asked me was, "Okay, well, I'm trying to understand where sleep fits in," which is interesting, right? So even someone who's a health and wellness specialist working in corporate, who's teaching about those topics, was having a challenging time understanding how sleep wellness factored into it.
That is extremely ironic.
Right. So, but I'm not surprised. It's not the first person I've come across who's thought about this. This is why I'm saying sleep is, people don't know about it. People are confused about it. How are you going to implement it? In any case, with that, when I ended up doing a lunch and learn with that corporation, which was, I guess you could say it was all at a distance. So I did one with different offices across Canada, right? And I think the employees were extremely receptive, but I do remember, I won't name names, but there were issues, for instance, concerns in HR about, well, what if people ask about napping? You know, I mean,
Ooh,
can
Pandora's box. Yeah.
yes.
They
What are
should
you going
ask
to
about
say?
napping. Anyway, you're preaching to the choir about napping. They're critical. As I've been still trying to figure out my own body system. Like napping is like the scotch tape or the band-aid I need to, like, get a couple of good extra hours in the afternoon. Otherwise, oh boy, yeah, that's old school. That's a paradigm they need to get over.
Right.
Yeah.
And so that was a big issue.
I
They
see.
were very concerned about whether or not we would be promoting napping
Mhm.
at work or sleeping at work, essentially. It did come up.
Of course.
That's the thing. It did come up during the workshops, because people were like, well, at which, one of the tech companies specifically, I think it was Google or Apple. I don't remember which one partic- that particular person had mentioned, but they were like, well, I know that in this company, this is what they do. Are we going to have that here?
Good on them.
Well, yeah. So,
Well,
yeah.
people, there are companies, I don't know, I saw this on LinkedIn or whatever, that make even like pods. Like there are pods for people to nap in. There's like a big room with maybe 6 pods. Like get in there, poof, shut this big door. It's like, I don't know, like an amusement park cab on a big ride or something, and bam, I'm out for 15 minutes. And it's like they embrace it. That's, I mean, again, you're preaching to the choir, so I get very animated when I hear it. Damn right, you should nap. Like, come on, wake up. No pun intended.
Yeah, I think napping is a complex thing, and so it's interesting. There are different way. So napping is actually more complicated than it sounds,
Yeah, and a
right?
certain
Oh,
threshold, you can't like 20 minutes should. I did a module on this, so I know, and I have personal experience too. I nap for 15 minutes. That's it, not for like 3 hours. So that's a very
yeah.
good distinction, by the way. I didn't realize that should be mentioned, but yeah, like 15,
Yeah,
20 minutes. That's it, not like forever.
yeah. I think it also depends on your sleep issues, right?
Yeah.
So sometimes, in many cases, it's actually not recommended to nap. So it depends on the situation,
Okay.
and yeah, but it is more complex than people think, and so they were actually relieved when they found out that I wasn't going to recommend it.
Huh. Okay.
Interestingly enough, for their situation,
Yeah.
right?
For
Or
their.
in the context that I was, this particular context.
Okay.
Yeah. So
Good.
yeah.
So when the organization, when everyone does embrace it, or the majority does embrace it, what do people get out of this after all the intervention and coaching and et cetera?
Well, I mean, if anything, I think it's so new,
Mhm.
right? And what we know about interventions is that they have to be continuous as opposed to just a lunch and learn. For instance, it
Sure.
has to be something that you conduct, that should be tied also to performance indicators. You have to really figure out, in terms of large scale adoption, that would be more on the fatigue risk management side.
Yeah.
In terms of what I typically find is that you know how it is, there is this block sometimes in terms of how much people are willing to invest
Oh yeah.
in health and wellness beyond just a workshop,
Right.
right? So that, even though we know, for instance, that the cost of sleep deprivation or insomnia, or sleep issues on a company is very, very expensive. It's per employee, it's running into the
Hmm.
thousands. When the person in HR saw, when there was this person I was speaking with in HR, and that person saw the figures, her jaw pretty much dropped. She's like, "Whoa, can you go back?" In the when I was speaking with her, I had a presentation, and I said, she's like, "Whoa, can you," like, she's like, "Whoa." I'm like, "What? Is that are those?" I'm just looking at the numbers. I can't. That's really high.
Uh-huh.
I'm like, it's really high because that's the way it is, and yet people don't realize its importance. Yeah,
Yeah.
not yet.
The, there's really an education. It's practically a sales job, because I guess I was going to ask about biggest challenges, other than anything you mentioned. I think you just naturally went into there. We know there's a book in our field that we're all aware of. At least I've heard of, called from Harold Stalovich, called "Telling Aid Training." And you think like, oh yeah, look, I told you about this, and that's it, that's all. And okay, check in the box, happy ending. And you know what? I was discussing this with my last guest, a friend of mine, and it's as if I came up with an example, because I likened his passion for his job with his passion for the hockey pool, and how you want to predict the future, like he predicts financial markets and all that. And I said, you know what? I thought of it afterwards, and I said, you know what? Here in Montreal, we're all, for the most part, fans of the Habs. And last year, I follow casually up and down if I don't feel like thinking anything more serious. And I heard, oh, the power, not the power, well, that too, but oh, the penalty kill was awful. And I'm like, okay. And it's as if what people tell us, it's like as if you would tell the Canadians, yeah, we want an e-learning on the penalty kill so that all the defensemen can take it and then get better on penalty killing. Could you do that? And then they get shocked that it doesn't work, or it's like, what do you mean that's not enough? What? So that's it. My challenge, I was gonna close this up with is again how we're expanding, and we're trying to go just from training to consulting to seeing out the results, going full Kirkpatrick, as we say in our field, like measuring everything up until the end. But a lot of it is like, oh no, we just want a training, and part of it might just be, behind the scenes, they just maybe a subconscious indifference. Like, yeah, okay, training, check in the box. Whether it's I don't know, I don't care, or whatever, or both. It's one of our biggest challenges, and we really have to like fragilize our beliefs that, oh yeah, training will do the job, or that's all we need. And point out the cost. Like, okay, you don't want to spend an extra $5,000. Okay, go enjoy your $100,000 of damage control when someone smashes a forklift, or just you lose out on a contract because you had no creativity, like the whole span of it. So yeah. So,
I mean, like,
how have you dealt with that kind of thing? Like just going beyond the check in the box training.
this is the issue, isn't it? I think it's an issue across in terms of the field, like, okay, not in terms of, okay, so I still consider myself very much a part of the learning field.
Right.
On the learning field, right? And I use my skills and my research from educational technology, where you basically, how people learn, how people design instruction, how does people design learning, depending on which field you're talking to, right? People will say learning instruction. It just gets all complex, you know how it is. And then, but essentially, yeah, I still consider myself very much a part of this field overall. It's just that I have niched down to sleep wellness, and even now expanding from organizations to working with people individually in terms of one-on-one coaching, where I think you can make a greater amount of progress.
Yeah.
Right? Because you are working one-on-one with a person, you are tailoring it to their lifestyles, having them learn about it, and then putting it into practice. And you're helping them with a plan. And it's like healthy eating or physical exercise. You do it once, it's not going to help you. But if you stick to it, if you help them with their motivation, you help and you believe in them and you support them through it, in time, they're going to see benefits. And I think this is very satisfying.
Mm-hmm.
I think, and I think that's where I see a lot of promise. Yes, we can continue to work on a more general level with companies, but I think working directly with a person is extremely effective. I'd say more effective in terms of like changing health and wellness habits.
I would add an engaged person. What this makes me think of? We had a recently, well, the past couple of years, we've had a merger with a company, and the gentleman has acted as a mentor to us to go into consulting more often, as we're trying to expand the field into this and raise more awareness and get better results and so forth. And he points out, and it's like, a very common sense type of conclusion, they'll get engaged if they feel the pain enough. They really have to feel the pain. It's almost your job to go out and dig out the pain. And he, like, when he was giving his training, he was really exaggerating to, like, find the pain. And I think it's like when you're sitting on that thumbtack long enough, okay, you've woken me. Okay, now I'm ready to pay attention. Yeah. And I think that's what it takes to go full Addy. I think most of us can relate to what Addy for us, not for the non-IDs, is like the process of analysis, design, development, implementation, and evaluation. A lot of us just get stuck in add, here's the e-learning, have fun, enjoy. And it's not that we don't want to hear what happened. They don't care to tell us what happened, and we're like, no, you want long-term results? You want to go do more than a check in the box? go for, full hog. Yes, it costs more upfront, but you'll save tons down the line, or you'll even make tons down the line if you're that committed. It's that leap of faith that you got to get over that short-term ouch for the long-term reward. So when they're not engaged, I think it goes back to that insidiousness that you're talking to another frog who doesn't realize it's in 45-degree water. It's going to take him till 65, 74, or he may never realize it. Oh yeah, this is my normal. This is the way it's supposed to be, just like you thought it was supposed to be that way all those years ago when you were struggling 9 to 5. So it's just raise awareness, and you got to make it hurt for their own good, just for a little bit, just so they could, catalyze a change in paradigm there and a change in direction. So I think that's common to us all.
Yes, I agree with you. I also believe that people have to they have to feel pain. I think what I've also realized too, because remember I was saying how, okay, so people have asked us for advice, family, friends, or in many cases, just for advice, right? And we'd give free information. And people have asked for coaching in the past, and you do it. And if they don't invest in it, you don't see the outcomes to the same degree as somebody who actually invests in their health.
That's psychology, right? 101. You have to have skin in the game.
That's it. You have to have, yes, you have to have skin in the game. You have to, because honestly, skin in the game hurts, right?
Yeah.
And if you're saying that pain motivates to some degree, and to a degree, there's a lot to be said about sugar as well, right? But definitely pain will get you started.
Yeah.
That's what got me started. I was like, just stop it. Just stop this brain fog. Just stop, this feeling like expletive, beginning with an S, and just help me feel better.
I'm not sure what you're talking about. Expletive with an S?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
Yeah, I know. Let's make it more clear, right? It's sort of like Jeopardy. Not Jeopardy. What Wheel of Fortune? Which one?
Yeah.
That's it. Yeah. It's like, yeah. But it's sort of like, you just feel horrible. And when you get to that point, you just want it to stop. And that's often you push yourself to that point. Or it's not even you. Sometimes in many cases, it's not, it might not even be your fault. You just assume that you have to do all these things and nobody's taught you better. And for many people, it's not their fault. And I would say that's even harder for people like me who are night owls, because we are at a disadvantage and we're often called lazy, and people always think you must have a morning routine. I could go on to another episode with that. I'm not even going to get into it here. But I'm like, no, you don't. Anyways, but it's my little 2 cents.
All right. Indeed. Yeah. Okay, so that is just about it. So I being definitely on your team on this, I didn't want to let this conclude without giving you the opportunity to give people wanting to know more, where can they go, how can they contact you, and so forth. Plug away, shamelessly. This is good stuff.
All right. So in terms of Somnolence Plus, you can contact us at support@somnolenceplus.com. If you'd like to read my blog, which I created anonymously at first because I kind of was wetting my feet, but I've now pretty much explained who I am, right? So it's that's at www.sleepwellblog.org. You can also go to our Facebook page, which is Sleep Well. So it's at Sleep Well Page. And from at Sleep Well Page, you'll be able to pretty much see the links to all of our other sites. And if you'd like to speak with me more directly or email me about our coaching programs or our Somnolence Plus services, then you can contact me, like I said, at support@somnolenceplus.com, or more directly at Sheryl@SherylGuloy.com. And Yeah, I could send you the link if you like, and you could
Oh yeah,
maybe.
I could include it in the description and all that stuff and into the Facebook page. So yeah, by all means.
Yeah. Thank you so much.
Thank you, and that's it. And well, for the sake of growing this channel, I have to throw in the typical YouTuber plugs that made my eyes roll until I became one myself. I'm like, oh yeah, that's why they do it. So if you enjoyed this and you want more, the old like, the subscribe, the comments. Heck, if you want to be on the show, it's the fun part about it is that I can interview anyone because everyone has to learn something about their field anyway. So that makes it very easy to create content and make it a rich and interesting ride. So anyone who wants to do that, get in touch, leave a comment, and so on and so forth. Sheryl, thank you once again. This was very fun. We talked about, we've known each other for a little while and we've explored already, but this is like another layer that I truly enjoyed. That was really on top of everything else I already knew. So thanks once again for doing this.
It's always a pleasure, George. Thank
All right.
you so much for the opportunity.
You're welcome.
Thanks.
Okay, folks,
Welcome.
that is
You're
it for
welcome.
now. Thank you for watching and take care. All right. Until next time.